Hi everybody, this is Moss Jackson. Welcome back to Mondays with Moss. So here we are, close to the election. And I'm not sure about you, but I'm feeling a little nervous. I've been aware actually, feeling nervous for the last few months. So it's great that I'm doing this particular talk today. So the general umbrella theme that we are talking about is having a great life, navigating a great life. And I'm talking about the toolkit, a navigator's toolkit, the 10 skills I think you need. If you have them available and practice them on a regular basis, when the situation arises, you'll be able to manage upsets and difficulties and get on with your life rather than being sidetracked and detoured. So remember the quote from Tale of Two Cities? These were the best of times, the worst of times. What do you think? Is this the best of times for you, the worst of times? I mean, after all, we're going through a pandemic, economic difficulty, upheavals with people's work and careers, changes that are very difficult, working from home, kids learning from home. You know, last year, when kids were learning from home after the pandemic hit, I think February or March, by the time school ended in June, they were already 3 months, 4 months behind, you know, if they were in class. So we're struggling, you know, I think as adults, teenagers, and children, to manage these radical changes. And we're experiencing another radical change in terms of, in a few weeks, about a month, we have a presidential election. And, you know, where are we going to go? Is it still a democracy? Are we moving towards an authoritative state? So we have a lot of responsibility that we need to really take a look at. So I don't think we're living in really safe times. I think these are hard times. I think they're scary times. I have some fear. So I'm wondering, are you having trouble standing on solid ground? Do you feel like you're centered? Do you feel like our country is going in the right direction? Do you feel you're going in the right direction? The majority of people, I think, feel unsafe right now, shaky, not very certain. They're not feeling very resilient. That's what we're seeing in the reports. I think last year we had about a 30%, 40% increase in anxiety and depression. Adolescent suicides and attempts are going up. So these are perfect triggers what we're going through now to feel fearful. Or I want to talk today about the nature of fear. I want to start to give you some strategies for managing fear. And it's going to take maybe 2, maybe 3 sessions to be able to talk about fully, with some comprehension and humor, I hope, and value, what fear is, where it comes from, and how to handle it. So I would suggest fear is not an unusual companion for us. For many, it's a constant companion. So I can relate to that. I mean, in terms of my childhood, I grew up in Brooklyn. My parents did not have much money. My parents fought. It seems like they fought a lot. Whenever I tried to find out what they were fighting about, my mom said, "We didn't fight. It was none of your business. Go play." So I never got any reality. So I think my sense of fear started pretty early, maybe around 4 or 5, when I asked my mom what was going on. I felt safety was not present. As a teenager, I really had a deep desire to fit in, to be part of the group, to have a girlfriend, have a best friend. So I think I had some fears about not belonging, not fitting in. As an adult, particularly when I got it through college, it scared the hell out of me. How am I going to make a living? So the whole idea of performance, and am I good enough? Am I going to be able to afford buying a house and take care of a family? So I think fear, anxiety have been kind of a constant companion for me. I think I've done okay dealing with it, but the fear is there nevertheless. So I think what I've discovered over the years, that everybody has fears. No one is immune. All of us feel it. So maybe a key question is, where does it come from? Where does fear come from? Well, it comes from 3 sources. One is genetics, another one is our history, another circumstances. In terms of genetics, you know, the planet's been around for about 4 billion years, okay? For the last 500 million years, we've had animals on the planet with nervous systems. About 200 million years ago, mammals showed up, lions, tigers, and bears. We didn't show up yet. They had nervous systems. About 100,000 years ago, we showed up, humans, and we also have nervous systems. So what does that have to do with fear? Well, just imagine we live about 60,000 years ago, living in the jungle, and you're walking your child to the creek to get a bucket of water to bring it back to do some cooking. And the little child, little 5-year-old, sees a curved stick on the road, not the road, but on the dirt path, and starts to run towards it. Now you have an awareness. You have an instinctive reaction. What if it's a poisonous snake? There are black vipers in this area of the planet of where you live. You grab the child, you pull him back. Now that's instinctive, because what if the curved stick is a poisonous snake? To the child, it looks curvy. It looks like fun, because the child doesn't have that memory yet that there are poisonous snakes. So the child can't think. So fear was a survival factor. So not only are we the best of our species in terms of we're the ones who survived over these 100,000 years, but fear has been built into us. Now, although we think we're highly civilized in the 21st century, we still have a nervous system, the brain of a hunter-gatherer, of our neighbors, of our ancestors, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 years ago. We're still a very, very young species. So we have that. We have history. I had some history growing up. My parents fought. They had financial difficulty. As a teenager, not a teenager, 4th grade, we moved from Brooklyn to Richfield, New Jersey. And hey, Ron, great to see you. We moved from I moved from Brooklyn to Richfield. Now in Brooklyn, all we had in our apartment building, to me the world was one block, 2nd and Myrtle, okay, in Brooklyn. And in our neighborhood, all we had was Italians and Jewish people. I was Jewish, but the smell in our apartment building was garlic and chicken soup. When we moved to Richfield, there was no smell of garlic or chicken soup. It was really a neighborhood of Protestants, and I wasn't used to living, and I wasn't really easily accepted. So that whole notion of belonging was really kind of critical. So history is important. Circumstances. Did you lose a job? Did you get fired? Did you get divorced? Did you have a death in the family? Did you get ill? Have you had an accident? So circumstances will throw us into having fear. So it's genetics or evolution, it's our history and circumstances. Now I just want to make a distinction for you. Although I may use the word fear a lot during my talks, I want to separate fear from anxiety. Fear is the danger is right in front of you. That snake is looking at you. It's going to bite off. It's going to sting you. It's going to poison you. Or the punch, someone has a gun, is going to shoot you. They want your money. You're going to have your body's going to react naturally. We call it fear, but your body is mobilizing for action. It's happening right now. We tend to think of anxiety as being apprehensive about what might happen in the future. For example, fear of might happen giving a presentation. Will it be good? Is it going to be a failure? If I ask somebody out for a date, is the person going to say no? Will I feel ashamed? If I talk at a board meeting, will I look bad? What will people think? So these are fears called anxieties might happen. But I'm going to talk about fear in general, having both, immediate and in the future. Now basically, most of our fears are in our mind. I think it was Mark Twain who said, probably about a year before he died, 99% of what I worried about all during my life never happened. He said probably was closer to 100%. So fear basically comes from what we tell ourselves. The story in our mind, the movies in our mind. We tell stories all the time, but we don't know we're telling ourselves a story. For example, I'm working with a young man. He's about 21, and he took a new job at a store, Staples, and he got really, really worried about, would he fail? Is he smart enough? Would he be able to handle the cash register? What if people didn't like him? And he got really, really anxious, and his anxiety increased, and we started to see symptoms of obsessive compulsive behavior, a lot of counting, cleaning his hands over and over again. And when we talked about the fears, the anxiety subsided, the OCD subsided, and we talked about what could he do. What could he do was he could think about what did he really want. He wanted to learn. I said, good, that's called a growth mindset. You will make mistakes, so you have to accept the fact that mistakes are part of learning. He said, I didn't realize that. I was so afraid I'd make a mistake and get fired the first day. So he was telling himself a story. He had to be perfect. Hi, Wendy. Good to see you. So another person I worked with a number of years ago was a young girl in high school. She went out for the soccer team, and she made it. And at the game, her parents were there, and she was very ambitious. She wanted to do well, kind of perfectionistic. Parents had high standards. And she went to take a shot, but she froze. She didn't take the shot past the goalie. She passed it off. And she felt very ashamed afterwards. So she was fearful of failure and disapproval. So do you have stories that you're aware of? The fear of what might happen, not the fear not like a snake in front of you. So we want to be aware of what's our story. So I want to say something about why we have emotions, why we have fear and sadness and anger and happiness. Well, the emotions are designed to give us information about what's happening. That's our body's way of alerting us to. If you have fear, you want to avoid, you want to run away. If you have anger, you want to strike out to protect yourself. If you're sad, you want nurturance. You ever watch a little baby, a little child having hurt or fear or sadness, they run to mommy. See, so we're wired, our neurological systems are wired to have emotions that guide us to attack, to run, for connection. So our brains are wired a certain way. Our brains are wired. Remember we were talking before about life on the planet's been around for about 400 million years. That's the lizards, the reptiles, the alligators, even the cockroaches, and the dinosaurs. They had a survival brain. Basically, it was a fight or flight, and the key was survive at any cost. And about 100 million years ago, when mammals showed up, we developed an emotional brain of we want pleasure, want to avoid pain, want to stay with our tribe or our group or our clan. But 100,000 years ago, when humans showed up, we developed frontal lobe thinking. What do I want? How can I plan for it? How can I delay gratification? How can I talk, work together? That's our thinking brain. The problem is this. When we get triggered, when we see that curved stick and we think it's a snake, the emotional brain, the reptilian brain, and the early mammal brain gets triggered, and it floods us with a chemical, a neural transmitter that shuts down our thinking, and it floods us with emotional. We feel a lot of emotion, and we can lose as much as 30–40% of our thinking brain. So we get kind of stupid when we get panicky and too upset, too sad, too angry, too fearful. So we want to be aware of that's how the brain is wired. It just is the way it is. So that's why fear seems to show up so frequently, because we're not always in conscious control of what's going on around us. Now, I think at the core, from my point of view, the basic fear is uncertainty. I don't know what's happening. See, we as humans, we have several needs. We have a need for connection, to be loved, to be cared for. So connection. So if you're afraid that you're going to lose a connection, lose a girlfriend, lose a boyfriend, your parent's going to die, you have a fear of abandonment. It's a basic fear. We have a need for safety. And if you feel you're not safe, like a car's coming at you, someone cuts you off, you're going to feel the fear of I'm not safe. And also we have a strong need for control. If you don't feel like you're in control, you feel like you're out of control. For example, this morning I had to get a medical procedure. It was a new medical procedure. I wasn't used to it. And I became aware as I was in the waiting room, I was trying to relax consciously, breathing and imaging. I could feel the tension in my stomach. It felt like I was getting a stomach ache. I remember as a little kid, when I got scared, I'd get stomach aches. And here I am, a grown man. The procedure wasn't going to be invasive. It was going to be kind of neutral, a procedure, but I could feel the fear in my body. My body was alerting me. And then when I breathed into it, I said, what's this about? What is this? When did I have this before? I remember when I was a child, like when I asked my mom, why are my mom and dad fighting? They said, it's none of my business. I could feel the tension in my stomach. So I felt like I was not safe and I didn't have control. So I went into the room. I asked the technician to explain the procedure. And as I looked around the room, got familiar with it, asked her name, I could start to feel a sense of connection and safety come back. So what we're talking about, and what I want to talk to you about now, is how do we deal with these fears? So this is the first of several sessions. I'm going to probably talk about 3 ideas I have or strategies. Well, one is you got to diagnose the fear. What are you afraid of? Is it a threat to being connected? Are you afraid of being abandoned or losing a relationship? Are you afraid of losing control? Like you won't know what you're doing and it'll look stupid. Are you afraid that your safety? Like I went driving with my grandson yesterday. He's 16, he has a permit, 17. Sitting in the back, I didn't want to sit in the front. That's where his mother was sitting. She was kind of giving him directions, but I could feel some fear of safety. Was he going to brake okay? Why is he turning this way? A car's coming at us. So nothing happened, but it was my imagination, the story of my mind, okay? So I'm going to give you an example of what he's afraid of. So I was recently talking with a client who's working with his dad, going to take over the business. Excuse the noise in the background, that will subside in a minute. Anyway, his father tends to be sarcastic. He's a New Yorker too, like me. And he made a comment like sarcastic. And my client's been working really, really diligently, hard lately, to control his own temper and to be patient and to understand his father's aging and has some old ways of operating. And my client got really angry. Then he paused, didn't say anything, took a deep breath, went to his room, got out of that situation, and he said, because we've been talking about this, what's under the anger? And he said to himself, I think I'm really hurt. I've been really working hard to get my dad's approval and to really support him so he can retire with a sense of peace of mind and trust me. But when he made that comment, I felt disapproved of. I felt the loss of connection. And what happened was he then did something brilliant. He went to his dad, said, Dad, I want to tell you, your approval is really important to me. I'm really working hard to create a sense of safety for you, that you feel comfortable with me taking over the company. So when you made that comment before, I didn't know if you were intending to make fun of me or what, but it really hurt my feelings. I think I really need your approval and your support. Do you understand that? You may not be able to give it to me. And what he said to me was his dad melted. His dad got tears, gave him a hug and said, I didn't know that. I always thought you were like me, whatever that meant. But it was a good intervention because he moved from fear to connection and control. Okay, so, oh yeah, Rick Hansen, who's a psychologist, talks about we live in a state of the color orange. So if you approach a traffic light, we have green, orange, red. So we go through green, that's safety. Orange means slow down, be cautious. Red means danger, the fear is right in front of you. So he suggests we go through life as human beings in a state of orange. We're always in a stage of alert. Van der Kolk, who's a brilliant researcher, clinician in the area of trauma and PTSD, says our brain is wired in the back of our brain. Remember the 400 million year old reptile, the dinosaur? It's like a smoke detector, and it's always a hair trigger away from ringing. So that's the orange alert. Okay? So we want to be aware, going back to this notion of a story or a fact, are we dealing with a real tiger or a paper tiger? An example, I have a student I'm working with not too long ago. He really is a senior in high school, and he wants to participate in class, particularly one class, but he's a little unsure of himself. Why? Because in 8th grade, he went into a new school, and he was very young, 2 years behind other kids, and he thought to himself, I'm not smart enough. So now as a senior, he's worried that if he speaks up in class, the athletes, the other guys with whom he really wants to be bonded, will make fun of him. So he shuts down. Then he feels shame and stupid. So we've been talking about what's that about. So I said, your problem's not the kids. You have a mind bully. What is your mind telling you? So I think my mind's telling me they're going to make fun of me. They're going to think I'm stupid. So I don't say anything because I'm afraid of being embarrassed. Once he said it, he says, my God, no one's ever said that to me. I say it to myself. I worry about it. You're living on orange. I love it. Thanks, Ron. So I said to him, as a strategy, write down your story. Write down your orange story. So he wrote it down. Then I said, so what is it you really want? He says, I want to feel smart. I said, well, feeling smart comes from participation. You don't just feel smart. You got to do something. And let's find out if people laugh at you or not. If they laugh at you, at least we have information. Then we can figure out why they're laughing at you. We'll make a correction. So he says, I'm scared to do that. What if they laugh at me? So then we talked a little bit more about that, looked at the worst case scenario, which was just, I said, is this real? Is this a paper tiger or a real tiger? He says, it must be paper, but it feels real. I said, I know. That's the nature of fear. We think our story about fear is real. Anyway, he went to class. He tried it out. He comes back to the next session. I said, Dr. Jackson, I tried it. I did it. I attacked the dog. No, attack the dog is a strategy that I talked about. I'll talk about that another time. But basically, if you have your fear, go right for it. If a dog is growling at you, go, Wah! There's a theory about if you meet a bear in the woods, get really big, gather around some people, and go, ah! So attack the dog, attack the fear directly. Okay, so, yeah, so he did, and he felt pretty good about it. Okay, another strategy besides do the diagnosis, what am I afraid of, what do I want, and is the paper tiger or a real tiger, it's called play the A game. I've mentioned this a couple other times in my talk last week. I think I talked about self-control of anger. I talked about the A game. The A game, 3 A's. Acknowledge what you're feeling. That's called self-awareness. Accountability, own it. And 3, create an answer. Take an action. So, for example, with my student who was afraid of speaking up, he acknowledged, I'm afraid of looking stupid. I'm afraid of being disapproved of. He's aware of that. Accountability. He says, I don't speak up, but I blame others. I think others are going to do it to me. And I think I've made that up. Well, he got to realize he made that, even though he was never made fun of. He just was afraid of it starting in 8th grade. And now, 4 years later, he still has that 12-year-old, he was only 12 years old in 8th grade, he still has that 12-year-old fear. I said, the bully in your mind is a 12-year-old, but you're 16. You're 6 feet. Your 12-year-old was what, 5'4"? So you're letting the bully in your mind beat you up. And he said, my God, I can't believe I've been doing that all these years. What a waste of time. Then I said, well, what action are you going to take to correct it? He says, well, I want to feel smart. And I think what you're saying to me, I can't feel smart unless I speak up and get information back. I said, that's it. He took the action. He spoke up. So the A game is be aware or acknowledge what you're feeling. Be accountable. Own it. Stop blaming. Own that you're avoiding and making up a story. And 3, take action. Okay? I want to mention one more skill, which is, I'm going to call it realistic optimism. Realistic optimism. Stockdale was an admiral, I think it was an admiral or colonel, during the Vietnam War, and he, along with McCain, was shot down and taken prisoner by the North Vietnamese, and he was a prisoner of war for 6 years. And he found that the soldiers who broke down the most quickly were the naive optimists. They would say, oh, they're going to let us go by Thanksgiving. They're going to let us go by Christmas. They're going to let us go by Easter or whatever it was. But they didn't. They were in jail. They were tortured almost every day for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So McCain, what he discovered was you want to realize how much pain you can take. And when the prisoners felt enough pain, they would give information to North Vietnamese inquisitors, but there would be lies and make up stories, not real information. So they didn't betray their integrity or loyalty to the country, but they would maintain a sense of optimism that one day we will be free. One day we'll have safety. Let's hold on to that. Okay? And they found that the ones who could realize how much pain they could take, realize they were going to have pain, they were not going to be rescued easily, but maintain a sense of faith. They were the ones who lasted and did not have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So realistic optimism. Other examples are Helen Keller, Roosevelt, Churchill during the Second World War. I have a number of clients. I have a young man who is in college, and he's learning how to be a self-advocate, how to speak up for himself. So he's been afraid to tell his friends, I don't want to go drinking. I have a full-time job, and I'm in college, and I have 15 credits, and I work full-time. I'm supporting myself through college. I said, so what goes on? He says, well, I go out with them Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I drink too much, I get drunk, and I can't function the next day. I said, so why don't you talk up? He said, I don't talk up because I'm afraid they're going to call me a pussy, or weak, or wimp, or not cool. I said, do they? I said, yeah, they do that sometimes. I said, yeah, guys will do that sometimes. You know why they do that? They really think you're weak and a pussy and wimp? So I don't really think so. But why do they do that? I said, because they're manipulating you. They know that you're kind of a pushover. They want your companionship. If you want their approval, which is, in the face of you don't really want to go, you want to stay home and study, and you want to be sober, because right now you're kind of a drunk and you're embarrassed. He says, that's exactly so, and I'm feeling really depressed about it. He says, well, then you have to speak up. And he said, well, what if they make fun of me? I said, so what? What are they going to say? And actually, he tried it. Not too long ago, he said, I'm going to stay home and study. The guy said, it's Friday night. Come on, let's go drinking. What are you, a pussy? And my client said, well, maybe I am, but I'm really clear. I want to wake up clear-headed tomorrow. I have a problem controlling my drinking, and I need to work to pay my college. You're not in college. Go drink. And his friend said to him, I'm going to miss your company. Maybe another time. So he decontaminated the fear by speaking up. Okay, he was realistic, and he said to himself, I could only do this, maybe I'll discover myself and like myself. Realistic, he had fear, took action anyway, discovered it was a paper tiger, not a real tiger. I have another client, grown man, retired, who has been right, trying to be right all his life. Have to be right. So he gets into lots of arguments with his wife, his kids. Recently, he's become the executor of the estate. And he's been fighting with his father and some other people. So I said to him, like, do you have any idea what other people in your family, your brother, your sister, are going through? He says, no, but I'm right. I said, well, is that at the expense of losing all these relationships? Why is being right so important? He said, well, it's always been right. So I said, so I said to him, can you imagine if you didn't have to be right and you could seek to understand and talk to people in your family about what they wanted rather than holding on to this title? You're the executor of the estate. Who the fuck cares? You're destroying your relationships. You're making people anxious. He says, I am? I said, yeah, because you're telling yourself a story. You got to be perfect and account for every penny. But there are other people in the family. So he started to talk to them, and he said, I can't believe what I'm learning. I'm learning so much about what my mother and my brother and other people think, and I realize I have been working on limited information. I said, yeah, you've been working on being right, which is really quite arrogant. So he acknowledged it, he took responsibility for it, now he's taking different actions. Okay, so I think I want to stop here in terms of those strategies. I think I've given you 3 or 4, maybe more. But next we're going to give you more. So, fear is present. We all feel it. We have inherited it over millions of years of evolution through our history, our circumstances, our genetics. We're wired to be fearful. However, if you're willing to learn to be resilient and how to face the fear and how to question, is it a story or is it a paper tiger, we may be able to crush the paper tiger. Maybe not get rid of the fear exactly. So this morning when I got my procedure, I had fear. I could feel it in my stomach. And I said to myself, my body's telling me something. So what can I do? Took some deep breaths. I attacked the dog. I was direct. I didn't attack it aggressively, but I said, help me understand what we're doing. Tell me your name. What's the procedure going to be like? Am I going to feel anything? How long is it going to be? I gathered information. I stopped being arrogant, thinking I had to look strong, be strong. I wasn't strong. I didn't feel strong. I was scared. And as soon as I got the information, I relaxed, breathed easy. Procedure went seamlessly, and I was fine. So I hope you found these techniques useful. I'm going to review them probably on Wednesday. And next Monday with Moss, I'm going to give you 3, 4, maybe more if I have time, other strategies for the toolkit. Now, why is this important? Given that fear is not going to go away, you're going to feel it between now and the election. You're going to feel it afterwards. We have a pandemic that's going to be around for at least a year. From what I understand from Dr. Fauci, that viruses never leave our body. Chickenpox, measles, the polio, all that virus is in our body. We don't kill it. HIV, it's in our body, and it could show up anytime under stress, under too much worry. So I want to do my best to give you some techniques and tools to be aware of the fear, deal with it. Why? So you can catch your breath, allow your thinking brain to say, I'm here now to give you support, to create a future worth having. Design a future based upon your desires and your passions. Set goals. Take those high-impact actions that allow you to win life, the game of life, which is you getting what you really want to get, which I think you can. So welcome to Navigating a Great Life, Mondays with Moss. If you have any questions, get them to me. There's going to be information below on how you can get to me. And by the way, if you want to find out if you're a life navigator, a survivor, or a victim, check the link. Are you a navigator? Take the test. It's a questionnaire online. Take you 5 minutes and you'll get the results. And if you want to talk to me, give me a call. My number is listed down there below too. Anyway, guys, be well. Keep breathing. Notice the fears And don't get fooled by paper tigers. Do not get fooled by paper tigers. Check it out. See you guys.